ever wish you could find a circle of successful business owners who just openly share what they did to get where they are? Challenges, perspectives, tough decisions, the good, the bad, the strategies, what worked and what definitely didn't? Because if you could, that would make your journey as CEO of your own small business 1,000,000 times easier and less lonely. Welcome to Reaching Abundance. This is the only podcast where you get weekly cliff notes about developing mental fortitude from successful business owners who have positioned their podcast as the marketing arm of their business. I'm your host, Virginia Elder, fellow business owner and abundance enthusiast. Listening to this show will help you step up, play big, avoid pitfalls, and shift into a growth mindset as you build and market your business and pursue your own definition of abundance. Haley Thomas is your mentor on today's episode. Her business and podcast, The Passion Pursuit, is all about helping you start and scale your vision. So, turning a potentially unclear idea into a business foundation, establishing systems, and launching services. Guiding creative people as business owners is what Haley does best. It's no surprise that in this episode, you'll learn how she sets and tracks goals, the systems she uses, and how she stays accountable. She also shares how she used to operate as a new business owner versus how she operates now as a more successful CEO. We discuss the power of mentorship, masterminds, and also the flip side of that, putting on your blinders and operating within your strengths and skills, not letting the shiny objects and shoulds from well-meaning fellow entrepreneurs cloud your vision. Here we go. Hey, Haley, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Virginia. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start out by hearing your definition of abundance.
Something that has shifted and changed as I've continued to evolve as a person and as a professional. But I think for me in this season, abundance is from the inside out. I feel like for me, it's about less of what's going on externally and more so about how I'm feeling internally. And really cultivating that anything is possible mentality, really seeing my life as this playground, these things that I get to do and create and experience. But I know that so much of that stems from what I can imagine within me first. When I first think about abundance, I think about, okay, if anything were possible, what can I see first? Not necessarily what is there, but what can I imagine if I allow myself to go there? And especially as somebody who is a creative, I really see this as being something where I can see that vision and then I'm able to embody it, step into it, cultivate it, and then create it. It's a feeling and it's hard to describe, but it feels good. It feels expansive. It feels exciting, exhilarating, sometimes scary, but it feels good.
Yeah. So with that definition in mind, were you always able to see where you were going or this vision of abundance? Or what did you have to shift before you could see that?
I've always been someone who has the wildest, crazy ideas. My poor husband, I feel like he's been the one who's on the other side of hearing all of my crazy ideas. And I always think I've seen the bigger picture, but I don't think I always had the belief to back it up. So for me, that's been the shift. I've seen it, but to think like, oh, I could have that? It could be possible for me. Like I would notice it in other people. I could sense that there was something bigger. I could imagine, but there was still that block of, but I can also have that. I can also cultivate that. So I think for me, the shift came from one, getting myself around other people who were paving that path, who were creating that example to see what was possible. especially coming from a family that was not of entrepreneurs. I didn't even know entrepreneurship could be a path for me until I allowed myself to see it first. And so starting to be around that community and absorbing all of that, and then starting to ask, well, why not me? I think we always ask, well, how could I do this? Where could I start? And we're always kind of going through the motions of trying to figure it out before we even begin. But for me, it was coming back to this question of, well, who am I not to be able to do this, to create this, to move forward?
Yeah. I think you hit on an important point there. Instead of asking how, I've been reading a book lately called Who Not How. Have you read that?
I have it on the top of my list. It is. I keep hearing about it and I'm like, okay, another confirmation. I'm like, I need to get this book.
Yes. And I think that's where we get stuck is, how can I do this? How can I get there? How? And when you ask how, the underlying instruction there to yourself is that you have to be the one to problem solve that. And I don't think I figured it out for a long time, but often the community of entrepreneurs has solutions that you don't have and can help you brainstorm around those things. And going towards the who, not how, is that there's someone else who has the answers and the action and the personality and the resources that could do it for you, instead of you sitting here spinning your wheels thinking, how do I get there? How do I get there? How do I get there? So with that in mind, what shift have you made in your business as far as stop asking how you do something and maybe shifting around community or who could help you, or tell me how you've gotten over that hump?
Community is everything. I truly, firmly believe we are not meant to do this alone. And one thing we don't realize as creatives and as entrepreneurs is we step into this role with the desire to do more of the thing that we love the most, the thing we want to create, the service that we want to put out there, the product we want to build. But we don't realize that what comes with that are all these other hats that we did not know we were going to wear in the process. For example, I love to speak. So it makes sense that I'd want to start a podcast. Is it my desire or knowledge to do the tech side, to figure out the editing, to figure out the show, all these other pieces that come with it? No. And that oftentimes can prevent me from really stepping in and doing the thing that I'm really feeling called to do because I'm trying to do it all on my own. And I will say for me, this has been a continuous layer after layer being pulled back of, okay, I can let this help in. I'm allowed to receive this support. My dreams are worthy of having more to help back them than just me. This dream, this vision that I have is so much bigger than myself. Of course, it's going to take more than just me to bring this thing to life in big and small ways. So for me, it was that shift. But I think as well as I started to see evidence of when I would let in that support, whether that be advice from a mentor, support from my husband, someone coming in to help me with a part of my business or to take it completely off my plate and do it. When I started to see the space that created for me to continue to stay in the realm of what I love the most and allowed me to really own my own superpowers, not only did I benefit internally, but on the external, it was beautiful to witness somebody else have the opportunity to step into theirs. So then it was like this beautiful co-creation of recognizing that me letting go of control of every single part and allowing somebody else to take the reins is giving them the opportunity and the permission to step into what they're being called to do. And what a beautiful opportunity that is.
I love that. So you hit on something of course, this vision is so big. It makes complete sense that this takes more than just me to bring this to fruition. I feel like that's just a shift right there, because you go from thinking this is my business, my vision, I have to do it all, but knowing that this vision is so big, then stepping back and realizing, well, why should I have to do this myself? But that's the natural intuition, I think, is that it's my vision, so I have to fulfill it. Let's back up several years. How did you approach getting help in these ways? And that very first realization of course, it's going to take more than just me. How did you approach that?
I think in the very beginning, I was a sponge. So it wasn't so much somebody was coming in necessarily, but I did not know everything. I think it would be crazy to think that. So I needed to soak up the knowledge. And in that season, it was more of what do I need to learn and who can I learn it from? Who is a few steps ahead of me? Who has the life or the business or this idea that I'm trying to step into that I could learn and that I could glean from? And so I started to pay attention to who was, like I said, just those few steps ahead. So I was reading books, I was listening to all the podcasts, I was mindful about who I was connecting with or following on social media, and really just gleaning and learning from that space. But then I started to realize, okay, that's great. And I have all of this knowledge, right? Like I have this entire web of things that I've learned, but I still only have so much time in the day. And I still only want to do these certain areas. I don't have the desire to do all these other things. Or I also just didn't quite know how to put the pieces together. So then it was a matter of mentorship. I was involved in several mastermind communities at one time, group coaching programs where it was other creative, like-minded women specifically who were coming together in the spirit of growing something of their own. I had one-on-one support as well. So I started to kind of let people into looking at my vision and figuring out the gaps that I could not see. And I think that's something that's so important to recognize is that when we are so close to it, sometimes it can be hard to see it from the lens of maybe the strategy piece or the lens of, okay, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, but what do you need to do or prioritize to get you from A to B? So I started letting in that support with mentorship. And now I'm at this stage where I'm able to begin to recognize, one, what are the areas that I just simply do not have the time or the capacity to take on? But also, two, what are the specific things that I know are missing? And I'm able to identify the gaps a little bit quicker. So it's less general knowledge now. And it's more so of, I can tell that this piece of the business, for example, my marketing is not creating the results or the traction that I maybe used to see or that I used to experience. Who do I need to learn who is absolutely skilled in that area? And so I'm able to pinpoint a little bit more of what I'm needing. But it wasn't always that way. It definitely was more general in the beginning.
Thank you for walking us through that shift, because I agree. I think in the beginning, it's important to just be a sponge, like you said, just educate yourself, figure it out. Maybe we don't have that much revenue at that point. So it is really all on us to start to build. But then as soon as possible, you got to start looking outside your own little bubble, whether that's hiring contractors or finding bigger, better mentors or group coaching programs or whatever it is important. Something I love that you mentioned said that you needed to discover the gaps that you couldn't see. You also mentioned earlier focusing on your realm of tasks or management pieces that you are good at. So your zone of genius. How did you figure out your specific zone of genius? Did you go through a specific exercise, or how did you even get to that point where you said, these things are good for me, these things aren't, I should be doing these, I shouldn't be doing those? Like, how do you even get there?
It's so wild, the timing of you asking this, because just yesterday, I kid you not, I actually went back to a workbook that I had co-created years ago that walked women through this exact process. And I was like, I want to go back to the core. I want to go back to the foundation. So I just did this myself again. It's always an opportunity to realign. And one of the most pivotal realizations for me in really stepping in and owning my strengths was just that, discovering what they were. What are those areas that bring me joy? What are the things that I love to talk about that people even come to me for advice on because they know that they can get what they need? What are those things that I love to help people on or support people on? So one of the favorite questions that I often ask clients that I first work with is, what are those superpowers? What are those strengths of yours that really help you to stand out from the crowd? It's kind of like, I always love to give this example, is sometimes we look at a market and we think, wow, it's very oversaturated. There's other people that are already doing this. Who am I to do it? And I'm like, okay, but you got your own little spicy flavor over there that nobody else has. It's like New York City, for example, has, I think it's over 1,500 pizza places. 1,500 in that tiny little place. Like, I know there's a lot of people, but 1,500 pizza places alone. But the thing is, every single place has their own style, their own flavor, their own thing that they bring to the person who is craving what they and only they can offer. So it may be pizza, but it is not any same old pizza. And the same goes for you as a person. So when I recognized, okay, yeah, there's other coaches out there, there's other strategists out there, there's other people who are helping people build businesses, but what do I bring to the table that's different? What is my methodology? How do I love to support somebody? What do I love to make sure I'm emphasizing, or what do I value? So I would say it's a mix of my strengths and also to what I value and how I operate and then how I use those strengths moving forward. So discovering superpowers was a big one. I took the Strength Finders test many years ago as well. And that was so eye-opening to see the things that I didn't even realize were actually strengths were sitting right in front of me. And when I recognized and had that self-awareness of who I am as a person, then I could have a better idea of how I can support someone using what I already had. And one of the most amazing things to recognize is oftentimes we're equipped with what we need to succeed. We're equipped with these gifts already. We just sometimes forget that we have these pieces within us to use.
Yeah. So I'm going to second that, because I think some of those personality tests get flack in the space, but take them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't taken the Gallup Strength Finder yet, I highly suggest that, because it was illuminating to me as well. So for any business owner listening, that's going to be key to you discovering your superpowers and discovering the lane that you should continue to play in versus, you know what, this other thing is really hard for me. And this is why it feels hard, because it's not my strength. I should give that to somebody who that is their strength. That was a big shift for me.
We're always looking, I think, at what we're lacking, at what we need more of, at what we're not good at. And I think that we're not meant to. We're not meant to play all these different parts or to be all these different things, but to really understand and see that, again, you have everything you need within you to succeed. And when you recognize that and lean into what you have, lean into those superpowers, everything else starts to become a lot easier. It really, really does.
Absolutely. And something else you mentioned is the power of masterminds, group programs, mentorship. How should someone look at a program, a mentorship, or a mastermind and really identify, is this what I need in my business right now? Or is this just like another fun, shiny group with cool people that I want to hang out with? Like, how do we decide? Because just being honest, I mean, there are like 15 different groups and masterminds and programs and things that I could join right now. A, the revenue isn't there to join all of those. B, my time isn't there to join all of those. How do we weed through what's available and decide if the timing's right, if the group is right, if the people are right in that group with us?
This is so challenging for me because I'm somebody who has such FOMO. I always want to be in and a part of everything. And I love community. I love learning and gleaning from other like-minded creatives. And I know that no matter what group I'm in, I can always learn something. However, there is a time and there is a place, and having the discernment to really recognize this is what I need in this season and this is not what I need. And being really honest with yourself about that can help you to determine it. But I would say for me, when I was in those beginning stages, that to me was when community was the most important. I needed to be around other people who were thinking bigger. Because to be honest, I did not have that. I did not have friends or family who were entrepreneurs. I did not know what the possibilities were. I needed to be in spaces with people who I could like reach my hand up and they could pull me up. Like I needed to be around that energy of seeing what possibilities were out there for me. So in the beginning stages, it was so, so crucial. And as I've grown, it's again kind of been more determined based off of, is this mastermind or is this group coaching program, does it have a certain intention? Like I've been in groups that have been more centered around marketing specifically. I've been around groups who have been more specifically around stepping into your feminine as a business owner, like really identifying, okay, what are those areas that I know could be of complement or complement to me and my strengths that I could use to elevate me to that next level. When it comes to the mentors who are leading them as well, I always like to really look at, do they value the same things that I do? And I think it's really, really important to learn from those who you align with in that way, because there's brilliant, brilliant people out there. But if somebody has this determination, this lifestyle that they want to live where they're working 24/7, that does not align with how I want my life to be. So does it make sense for me to want to learn from them? Versus I really enjoy having the freedom and flexibility to take breaks, to make sure I'm prioritizing my well-being, to travel with my husband, and to take space for other things that I'm passionate about outside of the work that I'm doing. So I look for mentors who are embracing that, who are embodying that. So I think it's a mix of having an understanding of who you are, what you need, and if your values align with what that mentor or what that group is offering.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to shift just slightly and ask, what is like a really big goal that you have for your business this year? Whether you want to share numbers or not, that's okay. And what is something that you've already done or that you're putting in place to get you closer to that goal? Like help everyone go, okay, here's the shiny thing. How do we get there? So what are you doing in your business?
Ooh, it's like so real when you ask that. It instantly comes to mind, and it's that thing that starts to stir your stomach a little bit and like lights that fire within you. And then you know you're on the right place, right? When you have those feelings, you're like, okay, this is the thing.
It's exciting and big, right?
Yes, it so is. And it's so clear. I think it's more clear than it ever has been. And that's what scares me, because there's no running from that. It's like when you have that inner knowing of like, okay, this is the thing. It's like, all right, I guess we're going for it. So for me, I've done a lot through the Passion Pursuit. I have the podcast. We've done group programs. I've supported women and men too in one-on-one settings and local. I have clients who have been across the world. Like we've done so many amazing things. But what I really, really wanted to build was an intentional community and a step-by-step platform that takes more creatives through the process of desiring something and having that idea, wanting to start the business, knowing that there's more for them, and taking action on actually creating it and bringing that to life. Really the step-by-step of what the passion pursuit is. And that is the ability to start and scale a business that aligns with the life you want to live, to bring those ideas to fruition. And so I've done this already. It's been in these just like little segments, or again, through my one-on-one containers. But I really imagine this program that is almost like a school for entrepreneurs, a school for startups, for those to go through the process and to be supported in community with like-minded people who are either at the very beginning, maybe a few stages in, but collectively can glean and learn so much from each other. And so that is this vision. It is this one-to-many massive program with a huge community, a huge curriculum that I know will be an absolute game changer, because I've already started to map this out. And I know that these pieces have already made such a huge impact on clients that I've worked with one-on-one. But to build it to this level, the tech that's behind it, even just like the curriculum, making sure that I'm adding in everything that I can and that there are no missing gaps, because I want this to be really that one-stop shop for somebody who desires to start something of their own in a service-based business way. So the steps that I've taken so far to do that, I'm giving myself permission to make this process as slow and as spacious as I need it to be, which is very uncomfortable for me, because I'm often somebody who likes to plan and I like to go, go, go. But for me, I'm like, this is too big and too important for me to rush the process. So I'm really embracing creating space to dream, creating space to really think this through. What did I experience back in the day when I was building and starting out? And kind of remembering and walking through that timeline, looking back at old things I posted, really getting myself back in the shoes of the person that I'm wanting to reach through this program. So I would say space. And then the other side of things would be I'm asking questions from those who are already business owners and really seeing, hey, when you were in this stage, what do you wish you would have known? What did you learn? If you could go back and tell yourself one thing in those beginning stages of pursuing your thing, like what would you have told yourself? What do you wish you would have known? Just really gleaning some market research from those who are in that stage. And then also too, asking questions of those who are my ideal client and seeing what they really need. So it's a lot of connection, a lot of conversation. And really, I'm just like in the major creation mode right now, in the cave of creation and trying to just trust and honor the process.
That's super exciting. Thank you for sharing that. I think so many people have this big vision of what they want to create. And they're like, how do I even get started? Or what are the steps to take? And I think it's really natural for us to, like you said, just jump in and go 90 miles an hour and go, go, go. And I've got to create it within 6 months and put that pressure on ourselves. So it's refreshing to hear someone say they're allowing this to take the space and time that it needs to create. But I want to flip it on you just a little bit and say, okay, so you're discovering and having these conversations around what did you need to know when you started, or what was like the big game changer in your business. So I'm going to ask you, Haley, what was the big game changer or thing that you wish you knew a year ago, 2 years ago? What was the thing that made life so much easier, made everything make sense? A tool, a way that you operated, maybe a calendar hack, or give us that thing that was like, I wish I knew this.
There's two things that come to mind immediately. One is I kick myself sometimes because it's kind of like cleaning up the mess that you've created, but I wish I had had better systems for sure. I wish I had had some place to organize my ideas rather than being in some journal, some place in my phone notes, a voice note here, a voice note there, somewhere on a computer document or a Google Doc. Like I wish I had one hub where I could place everything that was present, everything that came to mind, and then I'd be able to really see, okay, is this a right now thing? Is this a phase one thing? Or is this like future vision? Because the passion pursuit for me is something I'm continuing to create through my life. I see there's an evolution here. And sometimes when we're in the visionary mode, we're often thinking in that like phase 3, phase 4 and beyond mentality. And so to be able to really see all these ideas and then to discern, okay, this is a right now and this is going to be on hold. There's more to be revealed that I need to press pause on this, but I'm not going to let it just like drift away. It's in its holding spot in the moment. So the system to hold everything and to organize it in more of a project management way. But I would say the other thing for me, if I could go back and tell myself this with this season specifically, I've been in a really beautiful reflection and realignment period. And what I'm noticing is I'm going back to the initial ideas, the initial core, the initial mission of what the passion pursuit was always meant to be. But somewhere along the way, things got a little bit cloudy, layers started coming on, things I felt I should do or should create started being stacked on. And I think that is one thing when you are learning and gleaning it in community with other people, it can be really easy to have that shiny penny syndrome. And I don't mean just in investments, but I actually mean in creating. Because it's easy to see one person doing it some way, one person showing up in this way, one person telling you this is how you should run your business, this is how many times you should post on Instagram, this is what the new trend is, this is the ideas that we should be creating. Like all these different layers start to come on and you all of a sudden are creating something that maybe it doesn't even align with what you wanted in the first place. So recognizing even that recently, I didn't get too far off track, but I started to recognize, okay, wait a second. This is not feeling like it used to. Something is not right. And when I came back to the core, I was able to discover that there were just a few layers that were put on. I began to trust myself less, to turn inward less, because I was so busy listening to all of these voices, opinions, thoughts around me. And it wasn't that they were wrong. There was no right and wrong. It was just, it was not mine. I was not tuning in to my own inner voice, my own ideas. And so if I could go back and tell that younger creative me, I would say you have got to put your blinders on sometimes and trust yourself.
Yes, 100%. I think we all, whether we're seeing things online, like, oh, look at her new website. It looks so great. Oh, I wish I had a new website, whatever it is. I'm just making up something because websites, can be this big new debut and everybody's sharing their fresh photo shoot on social media or whatever. It makes you think you have to do that. When really your pictures are just fine. Your website is just fine. If people are clicking and buying and doing the thing that they need to do, it's working. Maybe we don't need to focus our energy there. Let's not get distracted from the original mission. Did you have to go back and rewrite your original ideas, mission, and clarifying statements and all that to go, okay, hold on. What was the point of this in the first place? Because you mentioned going back in notebooks and looking back at things. Were you able to find a space where you had written a very clear vision? Because I think that's sometimes what's missing, is that even when you go back, it wasn't written down. It was just this idea, and that's why it was so easily changed, misguided, redirected by others, which, yes, they have well-meaning advice. But I think sometimes the problem is that it wasn't written down or organized. Like you said, systems are important. So were you able to find that clear vision written somewhere? And then the follow-up to that is, what system do you use to organize your ideas now?
So interestingly enough, where I really hit that point where I was like, I need to revisit some things from the past. I actually had a call last week, a 90-minute call, and I don't normally offer those. So the way this all came to be was very weird, but it was something I used to offer in the past. And through this call, I helped this woman really find clarity on what she desired most, what she wanted to create, those beginning steps of the business she wanted to step into, and then understanding what she had already within her to use to not just her skills, her superpowers, but resources, connections, these things that she already had that helped her to see, okay, she had what she needed to take those first initial steps. She didn't have to wait anymore. So going from her starting this conversation feeling like a little bit lost, a little bit unsure, feeling really stuck, to all of a sudden by the end, in those 90 minutes, being so crystal clear, having so much confidence. Her cheeks were so sore, she said, because she was smiling and buzzing so much with excitement and passion, and recognizing how exciting on my side of things to help somebody remember who they are, discover what brings them joy, and help them to see that they have the ability to make this their life. They can pursue this passion. They can do this thing that brings them so much joy. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally the definition of the passion pursuit, helping people do what they love. And lately, and over the last year, I feel like I had gotten into the nitty-gritty of business and the things to do in your marketing, these systems that you need, like how to create this and that. And it was so specific to business that it got away from what brings you joy. What is the thing that lights you up inside? What do you want to be doing more of? What are you passionate about? Really, again, that core essence of the passion pursuit. And it's not to say those other pieces aren't valuable. I think it's a very small tweak. I don't think I'm that far off by any means. We haven't strayed too far. But I think it was just this small tweak of remembering, okay, what is the core and the foundation to build on? I want to make sure that that is so solid and stable, and that the work that I'm putting out, the things that I'm creating, product or groups, are aligned with what the passion pursuit was always meant to be, not what I felt I should do or should create. So I did go back because of that interaction, and I started looking through past things I posted on Instagram, past notebooks, and it was in there, and it was in there several times across all of these platforms. Like, it was so clear. And I was almost kicking myself because I was like, Haley, this is so obvious. It's everywhere that this is what the passion pursuit is. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of gotten myself in this space where I was just looking externally of like, okay, where should I go next? Instead of looking at all of this evidence and all of this that I had already created and made. I was just looking in the wrong direction. So it was there. And now with that, I'm like, okay, where can I plaster this? There's no way I can ignore it. It's like front of my face. I have these big whiteboards over here, so I want to make sure I write it somewhere and it is like stable there in my office. But for me, where I do organize my ideas and I break things down in more of a structured way, is I use Asana. It's a similar project management tool, similar to Trello or ClickUp. But for me, Asana has just always been very user-friendly. So I go in there and every year I map out my year goals and what I want step by step in revenue, how many speaking opportunities I'd love to do this year, collaborations, are there new products? Do I want to make a new hire? Like I put all of the big picture things for the year. And then the next column, I say, okay, quarterly. What makes sense for quarter one's focus? Because we can't do all these things. So where are we starting first? What are we prioritizing? How am I breaking this down into a bite-sized piece? And then I break it down even further. January, February, March, that's quarter one. So how am I mapping this and using this across the full time frame? I want to maximize every ounce of quarter one. I don't want to get to the end of March and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind because I didn't plan. I want to see every aspect of my goal laid out and broken down into these tiny bite-sized pieces so that I'm not paralyzed before I even begin because I have too big of a thing to bite off. Like I want to make it really easy and tangible. So breaking it down that way, breaking it down into tasks, I just continue as small as I can make it to where it's something that I could say, okay, I can do this tomorrow. I don't have to wait. This isn't too big for me to take on. I have broken it down enough to be able to manage it. So Asana has been a game changer for me.
That's awesome. So we use Asana for client work with my team, but I haven't used it in this way. And now I'm just like so curious. Now I just want to open up Asana and like see what I can do. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. One thing I want to ask is inside your business with these goals in Asana, do you share that map of your goals and tasks and all that with a team member? Do you have a VA that helps you? Is there accountability inside your business for these things? What's your next step there?
This is an area that as I continue to let in that support and working on this part of it. And so for me, I don't know how. I've had people come in for certain parts. Like I do have somebody who comes in to support my podcast. I have somebody who supports me in like the marketing sense, but I have not actually had a VA yet, which is wild to me because there are many things that I would love to delegate right now and honestly could. But I think for me, part of what I mentioned of wanting to tell past me that I should do is to have better systems. And it was hard for me to understand what I could delegate because for me, my systems on the back end were so unorganized that if someone were to come in, they would be lost just as I was too. So the last, I would say 6 months, 6 to 8 months, I've been really intentional about, okay, what are the systems and processes that I'm setting up so I can see what is repeatable to know what I can delegate. So I'm on the verge. I'm very close to bringing in that support. But I will say from the accountability standpoint, I do have 2 people. They're just fellow creatives. We're not in any sort of program together or in any sort of mentorship together. We're just good friends who are on similar paths, who desire to hold each other accountable. And so I meet with one every other week and I meet with the other here and there as well. I would say the one every other week, we're on a schedule. We've got this is week 1's checklist, this is week 2's checklist, but we keep each other accountable and we have that support system that we just built on our own. And that's been a huge game changer for making sure we're moving the needle on the things that matter and that are the things that we set goals for and not just creating busy work for busy work's sake. I want to be super intentional with how I'm using my time.
That is so cool. I love your little accountability friend meetup situation. That is so fun. And I think that's important. Okay, we often, and I've made this mistake in the past too, looked at these paid masterminds, paid groups, paid things, thinking, I need that. How do I afford it? How at the time? Their meeting schedule doesn't match up with my schedule. I already have a recurring meeting at that time. This isn't going to work. And so I'll get in the spin. And it really helps for you to say that you have just some friends that you're being accountable with to their business and them to your business, because it doesn't always have to be this paid group formed organization thing that you're joining to get the help and instruction that you need. So I think that's really freeing. And thank you very much for sharing that piece.
Absolutely. I think for me, it was recognizing that in this season, I don't need a lot of external. I really just need accountability. I'm not in a season of consuming or in learning. I have so much. I'm overloaded with information and skills and processes and everything that at this point, I want to turn inwards to what I have. However, I can create accountability through the friends that I've made through the years. We have each other. And I think sometimes we forget that we have the ability to create what we need and to lean in on each other from those that we've connected with already.
I agree. That's awesome. Let's talk a bit about your podcast. When you launched your podcast, what was your approach to adding this extra layer of, many to-do lists to your already busy workload? And I know you said you have somebody help you with your show. Was that always the case? Like, walk us through those early phases of, I have a business. I know I want to speak more about my business and about how I'm helping people, but how do I get there? How do I do this? Talk to us about your thought process there and how you got started with your show.
I love the podcast. It's a labor of love, but it is one that I have absolutely loved. It's such a beautiful journey. And it's something that I wanted to do for years. I honestly think I wanted to do the podcast before I even had an understanding of what services and offers I was going to have. Like, I knew I wanted to speak. I knew I wanted to share more. I loved listening to podcasts, and I kept imagining how cool it would be to have a show of my own. Like, I've always been so aligned with that. But I kept putting it off because I didn't have the time and I didn't know what to do in terms of some of the tech and like how to actually make it happen. And again, continuing to try to do it all on my own, I kept putting procrastination on this thing because I recognized that I either had to take a significant more time to figure it out or I had to find somebody who could help me. And it wasn't until I came together with a group of local entrepreneurs. I lead our local Rising Tide chapter, if you're familiar. So we have different chapters all over the country, but it's just a group for local creatives and entrepreneurs to come together. And so I lead our local one. And with that, I had met this man who was a fellow creative. He was a videographer, photographer, loved content creation, and wanted to be a part of helping more creatives. So we got talking about different goals and things that we wanted to do. And he's like, well, what if I helped you start your podcast and you helped me from like the strategy standpoint? Because he needed business coaching. He needed like the systems and the structure and really mapping out his vision and figuring out the step-by-step. So we did a trade. And what a cool thing and experience that has been for both of us to see how we've been able to support each other with skills that we had. But truly, like, I think I would have still been wanting a podcast, but I don't think I would have had one if it had not been for me allowing that support to come in and for us to be able to work together. So he has been with me in it from the start. And I'm so, so grateful for that support, that push to do it. So with that, I always saw it as being this extension of not only sharing my own faults and journey and processes and everything that I could share that would support another creative, but I wanted there to be a space for others to share their story as well. Because I think when we are beginning something of our own, we just need to know that, one, we're not alone, truly, and that hearing another person's story can help you to see that it is absolutely possible for you too. Like the stories that I've heard on the podcast, the things people have overcome, it just reminds you that there can be so much against you, so much adversity that you have to overcome, and yet they still came out on the other side. So I just want to give people hope with that they absolutely can do the same.
Absolutely. And when it comes to creating your show, you got help. What did you do on your end of the creation piece of the podcast to help make it efficient or to ensure that when you sit down to record, you know what you're doing and you have a system around that? Because the help can be post-production. After you've recorded, maybe it's the editing, posting, scheduling, show notes. There's a multitude of tasks that happen after you record. But as far as the business owner, how did you protect your time and energy and create efficiency in your show as the kind of linchpin to the process? Nobody can record your voice for you. So that can't expand into this unlimited amount of time. How did you create systems to protect your time, but also let you do this cool thing that you wanted to do?
Organization is definitely key here. And I knew that right away. I created a Google Sheet and I mapped out the column of like episode number, episode title, any sort of show notes. Is this solo or is this with somebody? I need to create a graphic. So I started to map out everything that I would need. And then I created a folder for every single episode. So I had help with the recording and the editing. So the guy who does my podcast, he does that piece. And once he has the episode, he drops it into that Google Drive folder and I upload it, which takes me no time at all to do. I also do the show notes post-production because as well as that, it just really doesn't take me a ton of time. So I never really offboarded that piece. But in terms of the preparation and having an understanding as to what, it's interesting. I wish I had more of a process with this. And I think when it comes to having guests on, I do have a pre-questionnaire if I have a guest on that just gives us a little bit of structure, a little bit of those masculine rails as to like what we'll be talking about, what are some points they want to be sure to make. If there's any link they want to provide that I add to my show notes, their social links, like I have that in a pre-questionnaire. But for the solo show, what's very strange for me, and I don't know if I'm just the odd one here, I don't do as well when I put myself in too much structure. When I have created outlines in the past, I have found that it just does not feel as natural for me. And I know that every single person is different and some need that structure to really like walk through and the confidence to be on page or on track. But for me, speaking is such a flow. And when I allow myself the space to just trust what is coming through, I find that there is so much more potent wisdom and impact that comes from allowing myself the space to just go. So oftentimes those solo shows, people ask me, they're like, do you outline all of these? And if you could see what I'm looking at, it would make you laugh because I'll put a couple things on there of like, okay, make sure you hit on point A, B, and C. But then I just allow myself to go, to speak, to really share whatever is present on my heart. And for me, that's been my most authentic way of how I can show up in the space and how I want to put my voice and my words and my thoughts out there into the world.
Thank you, because I think that's really good advice for the creatives out there. For certain personality types, these people might need structure. They might need that outline. They might even need a script. Okay. But then there's this other lane of people that generally identify as creatives, which are your ideal clients, which includes you, that structure makes them feel kind of boxed in and the guardrails are too tight. So to prevent that, they need that freedom to say, you know what, I can get on here and I can riff for 30 minutes and my editor can take care of things and allow that flow. So that's really good advice to realize that podcasting is for everyone, but you may need to approach it differently. Whereas some people might really feel that they need that outline and script, and then other people need to feel like they have some freedom. So I think that's really important. But then you also said, hey, this doesn't mean I'm just doing this unstructured, willy-nilly, no organization whatsoever, because yes, there are a bazillion moving parts and checkboxes and things that have to be done for a podcast to be consistent and to have guests on and to be able to represent them well. So thank you for sharing all of that. I want to wrap up by asking you, what is something that you're offering to your audience right now, some kind of special program or whatever you want to highlight in your business? And then definitely share with us a little bit more about your show and where we can tune in and find you and follow you, all of those good things.
Thank you for asking. And thank you for asking such beautiful questions on this time. It's been such a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
So I'm always offering one-on-one for those who are looking for that higher level of support. But for those who are listening and you just have this little inkling in your stomach that's like, yeah, I'm that person who is ready for more. I am that aspiring entrepreneur. I've got ideas in me that I know will make an impact. And you're just like, I do not know where, how, or what to do to begin. That program that I mentioned earlier is going to be first kind of launched behind the scenes in more of a beta live format. And I would love to open that up for those that are listening here. It is not something I am launching very publicly. It's quite behind the scenes. But I feel really called to share that in this space of those who are like, you know what? I want to be a part of the process of this creation while simultaneously receiving that support to help you pursue your own passion this year. So that will be opening up within the next month. It will be very, very quick. So if that is of interest, I can always send over a waitlist link to that. You can sign up with that. And then as far as the Passion Pursuit podcast, so that's what it's called, the Passion Pursuit. It's all aligned with the brand. And it really is that space to feel, again, that hope, to feel lifted up, to feel inspired, to see that there is more than one way to get to Rome. There are so many ways that you can create and do the things that you want to do in this life. And if I can show you even just a little bit of that possibility, and maybe even too, some of the ways of how to begin, that is what you can expect on the show and on social media and all the places of the Passion Pursuit.
Awesome. Thank you so much for just being transparent with us, letting us in a little bit into your business. I shared with you separately that I feel like that was what was missing for me for a very long time. I felt like there were barriers and secrets and everybody was running their business, but wouldn't really tell you how to build this thing, how to hire the contractor, how to learn when you get help, or how to know how to map out your goals in Asana, So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yes, I think by the time this episode launches, we will be able to share a link to this program. So definitely let's look for that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Haley.
Thank you. I appreciate your time today and for having me on. It was amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. As this episode comes to a close, I'd love to know which piece of this conversation made an impact on you. Send a message to me at reachingabundance.com/convo. For your convenience, the link is in the episode description. This show is edited and published on YouTube and all podcast apps by podcastabundance.com, and we are taking clients. When you're ready to effectively and efficiently market your business using a podcast, book a call with me by clicking the Book a Call link in the episode description. Thank you for spending your time with me and listening to Reaching Abundance. I'm your host, Virginia Elder. I'll be back next week with another amazing guest to help you build your business, navigate mindset shifts, establish growth-oriented habits, and effectively leverage online marketing. In the meantime, keep up with me and my guests on Instagram at Podcast Abundance.